Hello! Today I will be ranking Star Trek characters based on how well I think that they could host an episode of The Muppet Show. Today our rankings are amazing, solid, bad but funny, and bad but good. You may be asking me what context are they performing in, and the answer is obligated or forced. None of these characters would willingly or want to go to the Muppets and host an episode of their show. This is something that they are being told that they have to do by a third party. Got it? Good. Okay. So, our first category is awesome, and our first character in the awesome category, or amazing category, is Uhura. I think Uhura would be an amazing host of The Muppet Show. She's charismatic. She has a very theatrical talent singing, which would do well on The Muppet Show. There are multiple hosts that sing already, so it would just mesh very well with The Muppet Show. She's also just overall very sweet, and she likes fluffy things, so therefore I think that she would like the Muppets. She would find them very endearing and cute, and they would like her as well. Except for maybe Miss Piggy. I can imagine a plotline where Miss Piggy gets a little bit jealous of Uhura because she's like gorgeous. And yeah, I just think that she would do great. Next up in the amazing category is Spock. Spock is well known for his comebacks to anyone on the crew of the Enterprise, and Spock wants you to think that those are him just being logical and making sure that people stay on task, but we all know that he's doing that on purpose. Spock likes to be sassy and a bit of a cunt. Now, if Spock was told, you have to host an episode of a show, Spock logically would be like, well, okay, I have to perform then, and this cuntiness would automatically be up the level, and he would have a lot of fun banter with the Muppets, I think. I also think that Spock would get along really well with Sam the Eagle, which I think would be a really fun and interesting interaction to see, because they are just like the human and Muppet version of each other in my mind. Yeah, he also plays an instrument, which goes very well with the Muppets, and it would give him a talent to perform as host. Next category is solid, and first up we have Mr. Saavik. I think Mr. Saavik learns a lot from Mr. Spock. She learns a lot from him serving in the military, and she also learns a lot of him serving in the more modern context. I think that therefore she'd be able to solidly host an episode of The Muppet Show. She seems like a girl that kind of plays the flute, maybe, or maybe even the bass clarinet. I think that she'd play an instrument like that. I don't think that she sings. She seems more like a band kind of kid. But yeah, I think that she'd do a solid job. She'd also probably run backstage like the military, even if she wasn't asked, and I think that that would go very well for the Muppets. Next up in the solid category, we have James T. Kirk. I think James T. Kirk is a man that has taken at least 5 years of improv class, and he would utilize that very well in a performance context, like hosting The Muppet Show. I believe that he would be able to go along with their antics. He wouldn't be like an arguing type with the Muppets. He'd kind of go along with the goofiness and kind of add to the goofiness. This is something that I believe he would be capable of. He'd probably do some sort of comedy act, and overall I think it would be a flawed but solid performance. Next we have T'Pring. I think this is mostly based on vibes. She seems like she can sing, and I think that she'd be a good host in general. Yeah, it's just vibes. Lastly in this category we have Amanda, Spock's mom. I think that the Muppets would love her. I think she'd get along really well with Fozzie Bear and Robin. And I think that she'd just do like a sweet little like lullaby kind of thing. And it would just be a sweet, wholesome episode of The Muppet Show. They'd all just get along. Category. First up, we have Sulu. I don't think Sulu has any talents that would really like lend themselves to The Muppet Show in any sort of way. And I also don't think that he would get along with any of the Muppets, and I don't think that he would not get along with any of the Muppets. He just seems very, like, mediocre, middle of the road, so he goes in the middle category. Christine also goes in this category for the exact same reason. Next up in this category is Chekhov. I think Chekhov is also a man that has taken improv lessons, but he's more so that one guy that like makes all of the scenes about himself and like doesn't pay attention to what the instructor has to say at all. If you've ever taken an improv class, you know who the fuck I'm talking about. And I think that this would result in a show where like the person hosting it like knows what they're doing, but like they wouldn't be a good host because they wouldn't know how to give other people the spotlight, if you know what I mean. So that's where he goes. Lastly in this category we have Scotty, but like old man Scotty from like the movies, and I'll explain this further later on. Next up in the bad but funny category, we have Bones. Now, if Bones were to host the Muppet Show, he would spend the first 5 minutes backstage being like, fuck, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't have any talents to perform. And then Gonzo would launch himself through like 5 layers of drywall, and Bones would be like, holy shit, dude. Like, we gotta get you medical attention. And then he would do his little scan thing with his like instruments, and then he would like, fuck, like, you don't have any organs. Like, what the fuck do I do with this? So then he would take Gonzo and probably like Kermit and Fozzie up to the Enterprise like space doctor area, and then he'd perform medical examinations on all of them to try to figure out what the fuck goes on in a Muppet. And I think that would be very entertaining to watch, but that is also like not a show. So he goes in the bad category because he didn't do anything. Next up in the bad but funny category, we have young Scotty. I put these two as separate because I think old Scotty has a like theatricality about him that young Scotty doesn't have, which leads me to believe that older Scotty, when told you have to host an episode of the Muppet Show, would be like, yeah, okay, I can try. And like, he wouldn't really succeed at it, but it would at least be a show with like some level of competence to it. But young Scotty, he would get drunk. He wouldn't host that thing sober. He'd like drink an entire bottle of scotch. So therefore it would be an awful show, but it would be very entertaining to watch. Lastly in this category, we have Spock newly resurrected at the end of Star Trek 3. And I just think this would be funny because like, imagine being Spock and you're like resurrected and you like literally don't know anything. And then you're told, hey, host an episode of the Muppet Show. What the fuck would happen? Like, I gotta know. It would be really bad, but it would be pretty funny. And then in the last category, bad but boring, we have David. And then we also have Spock's dad. I think that he would run it not like a show, but rather like a diplomacy meeting. And it just wouldn't be fun to watch, I don't think. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Here are the final rankings. This is in order of how well they would do, I think. If you watched all the way through to the end, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this quality content. Follow me if you want more.